Good morning, friends. Hope that you're staying safe, that you're isolating as much as possible. But this is a really interesting time for all of us. It's actually quite surreal, I'm sure. So welcome back. This is our second sort of webcast, and it looks like we have about 80 attendees. The format is going to continue like it did last time, where I'll give some preamble kind of comments and remarks, and as questions come to you, please write those questions up, and it'll appear here on our screen here. So we're looking forward to Monday. And so when we open the campus again on Monday, it'll be with very limited face-to-face services and performed as remotely as possible. These measures will be in place for at least 2 weeks. So we're going to kind of take this 2 weeks at a time, and we may have to extend it as needed. We'll attempt today really to try to outline what this all might mean for each of our jobs. But all of you are strongly encouraged to work remotely as much as possible. And those of you that have not completed the telework survey should complete it as soon as possible. And faculty who don't have the equipment to work from home, you can take the survey as well to get access to telework resources, equipment, machines, that sort of thing. So each of you that has the capacity to work remotely should complete the telework agreement, as soon as possible. So for those that are worried about internet access, we've heard that the internet providers are providing free service or upgrades. So check with Comcast, and we recognize that some jobs usually aren't conducive to remote work, and that some of you may have to come into the office occasionally. However, we ask all of you to think creatively about ways that you can get your work done while increasing your social distancing. So to the extent possible, offices will be physically closed to the public, and services will be performed via telecommunications. In essence, the campus will be locked to the public. So employees still can use you guys can use your keys to access your offices, but otherwise we're going to keep the doors shut. We're going to place signs on each of the doors with instructions on how to access services remotely. Managers ought to be working with their teams to coordinate how the services will be offered in that way, in terms of phone numbers and where people should call. All plans of travel should be. So let me start this up. Please continue to practice social distancing, both at work and when you are off work. Wash your hands frequently and avoid touching your face. Employees are covered by PEHP to have free access to free counseling for anxiety, depression, or any other issue that you might have relative to your mental health. And so check the CDC website and our website about the coronavirus, and the best places to find information is there still. And if you travel out of state, please report it on our website so that we can help. And if you show COVID-19 symptoms, dry cough, fever, and or shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider ASAP. Don't go to the hospital or see a doctor without calling the hotline first. So when practical, please also report your symptoms to the college by taking the survey we've talked about. We recognize that all of these changes over the past few weeks have created significant hardships for everybody, and we wish this wasn't necessary. But please keep in mind that also the best way to lessen the disruption by COVID-19 is to take it seriously right now. Keep everyone safe by following the protocols outlined, and continue to help us serve our students and community by finding creative and new ways to provide services remotely. I've got to say that the work that everyone has done so far to adjust to this health crisis is nothing short of remarkable, and I thank you. It's been inspiring, really. And each and every one of you is making a difference in important ways. So I thank you for your commitment to your own health and to those of others. So now I think we're just going to kind of open it up to question and answer Q&A. We'll have a similar format as we did last time, where as questions come up, I'll bring key members of the cabinet to the table, and we'll essentially have a conversation. I think one of the questions that have come up now is related to student employment. So let's adjust our format. And by the way, we're making sure we're practicing good social distancing, making sure we're about 6 feet apart. So bear with us. Let me ask Josh to come and join me here, and we're going to have you talk about student employment. Let's move the chairs here, and welcome, Josh. So yeah, one of the questions that we've had is what about student employment after spring break? Mm-hmm. What do we tell our students?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first and most important message is to reiterate that any students that can go home should. The remaining students are still welcome to continue their jobs. Again, we're going to keep offices closed as much as possible, but some work will still be going on in those offices. They'll just be closed to the public. And then to the extent that students have jobs in areas that maybe need to have a bigger shutdown or maybe don't have work for them, we will continue to find additional work for those students.
Going to redeploy them in places where, because the work is actually hitting us unevenly.
Right.
And so in some cases, there probably won't be a lot to do, mm-hmm. but we also want to make sure that people are economically and financially secure as much as possible, and not adding to the stress of this whole thing. I do want to make sure again, and those that are out there listening, whether it's clear to you in terms of what our position is next Monday. So let me reiterate, and if it's not clear, continue to sort of ask questions. But the position really is that we are open. Okay, we are open for full services, but those services are going to have to be done as much as possible remotely. So the face-to-face services is what really we're trying to shut down. But we are an educational institution, we're a professional institution, and starting Monday, we're back in business. So I hope that's clear, that we're keeping buildings locked, we're trying to keep people safe, so that there's a lot of face-to-face contact. But we do need to be available. Now, how you work that out with your supervisors and how you work that in terms of covering those offices will be largely up to the supervisors. So I hope that's not a confusing message. So it's not like what we've done this week, where we essentially have basically closed for spring break. We will be open. And that doesn't mean that we want everybody back on campus. What that does mean is that we need to get our work done. We need to get our work done, and if that's from home, all the better. So I hope that's clear, right?
Yeah, and I think to that point where the work is hitting us unevenly, some offices have much less work than they had before. Others have more work than ever, and so to the extent we can redeploy to kind of match the workforce with the workload, we're going to try to do that.
One of the questions that's come up is we mentioned the telework survey. Where do people find that?
Good question. I think we can work with our communications office to get that on the website. There's also going to be a follow-up email going out today that will have the link to the telework survey, a copy of the telework agreement, and then kind of all of the resources that we've talked about today. So that'll all be in the email that will come later today. Also, another update on the telework agreement, where we are encouraging people to stay home. We also don't want physical papers flying around everywhere, and so we're adjusting the process to allow if you email the telework agreement to your supervisor and the supervisor replies saying, yes, I agree, we're counting that as a signature for now.
Yeah, we're all learning a lot about about biology, aren't we? And this particular virus, depending on the report that you read, can stay alive for what, up to 3 days on a surface. That's really mind blowing to think. So yeah, if we can avoid that, avoid paying anything with cash. I've been told that that is not a great place to. It's not a great practice to have. Given the how bacteria and other germs could be on there. So another question is a good one: is how do we keep students to keep doing the social distance things? This is a big worry for us. I sent out a message yesterday to the students, and we have a message going out later today to them to not come to campus if at all possible. So we need to continue to sort of emphasize that, and as you as parents out there that have young people, try to keep them at home. We understand that there's some students that continue to come on campus, and that puts employees unnecessarily at risk. So to where you can help as you deal with your community members and your neighbors and your own family, let's try and at least this for the next couple of weeks. This may go a lot longer, we don't know, but as far as we're concerned, we kind of have like a 2-week horizon that we'll be revisiting.
Yeah, and one thing I would encourage employees to do, a lot of us, I think, get used to working in our office, and that's kind of where our routine is. And I think sometimes there's an attitude of, what excuse can I come up with to need to be in the office because I work better there? And I really think the attitude needs to flip to being trying to find creative ways to work from home and trying to find every excuse you can to be working from home over the next 2 weeks. So again, that's not going to work for everybody, but to the extent you can be creative and find ways to work from home, and again, I just work better in my office is probably not the best reason to be here.
Yeah, it's good point. What do we know about Buster's Pantry? And I'm not sure that I have a lot of insight here, but from what I can gather from Marcy, thanks Marcy for helping us out here. It looks like we can make donations. All of us can make donations, but you use the Sandpete Pantry. Yeah. It's the Sandpete Pantry that is help, sort of supplying the Buster's Pantry, and that donation, the money donations can happen online. Deliveries now, right, or at least the mobile unit will be here only on Fridays, from what I can gather, from 2 to 4 in the faculty parking lot. So, any other insight as questions come up? We'll bring you back, Josh. But any advice for us employees? No. I think just again, let's just all take this seriously, and the more we can take it seriously now, the less we'll have to take it seriously in the future. So you'll end up sending a follow-up message today, from what I understand, right, to everybody through email, and we'll also put that on our website. But Josh, doing a great job. Please tell your staff what a terrific team they've been in a difficult circumstance. So we might bring you back as questions come up. Okay, sounds good. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask our provost to come on up. There are some questions that are emerging relative to our educational delivery, and one is a question that came up that some students are saying that they're a little scared to speak to their faculty members. There's social anxiety is something that some students suffer from. But what would you say to these students?
Yeah, that's a good question. For some students, it really is difficult to talk to other people. They're maybe feel that there's some sort of distance between professors and them. Our professors, you should feel very free, though, to email them or to use your Canvas feature to be able to reach out to them. Ask them questions that they're very good at getting back. If they don't get back to you, give me a call. 283-7301, 435 area code, and I'm very happy to help be a go-between to get that information. But if you don't feel good about contacting them one-on-one, I would just contact them either through email or by the Canvas feature, contact feature, because they realize it's a difficult time and they want to be able to help you out. They want to be able to step in and to be of use to you and to help you through this.
We actually were surprised by a question you had received from a student recently that didn't realize that, I think in this case, the student didn't know that she needed to get on Canvas. So you want to, those that are parents or even students that might be on here today, where can students learn, how to access their stuff by Monday?
Right. Yeah. We've been sending out these occasional important notices on the COVID-19 through Campus Network, and perhaps we weren't communicating as clearly as we possibly could. Some students were expecting faculty, I'm not sure, either by mail or something to reach out to them, but the way that you reach out and the way that you get messages from your professors is either by checking your Canvas messages or checking your emails. Canvas is the best way to contact, because then you know what your professor has for you, what she or he is going to lay out for the next couple of weeks. Another question that's related to that is that some students say, well, I don't know what's going to happen for the whole semester. The professors have given you, though, what the next week or two assignments are going to be. And some of them are going to wait and see how that goes to be able to adjust more towards the end. So they are communicating. If you check your Canvas, check your emails, you'll see what they want you to do there. And then get in and get to work. That's really important to try to stay right on top of these things.
That's good advice. There has been some questions about this pass-fail. There's been a lot of conversation around this, and we have a question here that BYU has gone to this pass-fail grade. There have been other institutions that have created this option. Where do you see Snow College coming down on that question at this point?
We're going to have a pass-fail option. We're not completely sure what it will be yet, but what we're going to try to do is trying to help out students. If they feel like they normally get A's in their classes and they feel like maybe they're going to get a B and they would rather not have that figure into their GPA, then what they could do is they could opt for a pass instead. There's some challenges to this, however. It could be as you transfer, say, to the University of Utah, that some of their programs may not accept pass-fail credit for having completed a course. And so the Utah system of higher education is trying to work that out right now. We think by the end of the week, we'll have some agreements among institutions how this is going to work. In the meantime, our office has been working with our registrar's office. We're working with our deans, and we think we'll have a good plan in place by next week that will offer students real options on when they might be able to take a pass for a class rather than take a grade, and what the pluses and minuses might be for opting for that kind of a system. So we will have some interesting features there. We thought it was going to be a bigger issue than it is, but I think we're able to work through most of these challenges now. And I think also as the regents meet on Thursday and Friday, I think they'll help clarify some things for all of the institutions in the state of Utah as well.
Yeah, we do have Board of Regents meeting tomorrow, and this will be a major topic, no doubt. What about classes that have a very kind of high kind of lab component? So, think about anatomy, think about sort of chemistry, but even then, what about, welding, kind of woodworking? How are we managing that?
So our anatomy labs and some of those labs, physics and so on, that are usually very high contact, have been moved completely online. So they're not completely all laid out yet. Again, there's a couple of weeks worth of assignments there, and the professors are going to check that and see how it goes. But there's been lots of video making this week, lots of recording of sessions and so on, and then some teaching assistants are going to be helping as well in terms of recording different segments that are going to be put online. For our automotive and welding and so on, students are going to be invited to come into the shops and work in shifts. Some of them will be on the north sides of those shops, some on the south side of those shops, so that there's social distancing involved. Some of that work will actually be done outside or in the backs of the buildings where they can get adequate ventilation and so on. So that's what we're working on. We should note on that, however, is that we could at any time perhaps get a recommendation from our governor's office that we go immediately into a shelter in place. And if that's the case, we'll figure out a way to be able to make it where students can come back at a safer time and be able to finish off the shop work that needs to be done. If you're in a study group and you've been used to working in study groups, one of the things that you should do is learn some of the features that we have that available either through Skype or just through joining your phone calls together and meeting that way. It really is not a good decision for students to get together in close quarters and in study groups. And then not all TAs may be coming back. Teaching assistants should be checking with the instructors to find out if they should be coming back and should be working.
Now, counseling available. So what if students need help? What should they do?
Yeah, counseling is still available. You should still work through the counseling office, and they can indicate either a session, for the most part, through teleconferencing. It is still very effective. We still care about you. We want you to make sure that you can deal with depression, anxiety, any of the other issues that you're dealing with. They're there. They want to help you out. And so the number on that is the 435 area code 283-7136. And it's also on the web. You can go right to the wellness page on our web and you can get that number or get that contact and you can set that up. And all of those counselors are there and they're still very anxious to help people.
What about summer classes? Where are we as we prepare for that?
Well, at this point, I don't think we're going to be able to hold face-to-face classes. We haven't made a firm decision on that. There could be some miraculous scientific miracle that's able to get us all inoculated and have this thing go away. But it looks like for right now that all the summer classes will have to be moved either to the same type of learning format that we're using now and online. So that's what we're planning on for right now. And those are good options. We think that they will work, and we don't want you to think, well, I just don't want to take a class unless it's face-to-face. What we're learning from this, even the faculty involved, is that we're learning new ways of reaching out to students and trying to help them. So we think this is going to provide a useful option, and we shouldn't steer away from those summer courses.
Yeah. There was a question about whether, pass-fail, is it, there might be a complaint about pass-fail. And so the question, I guess, the students need to sort of wrestle with, is it too complicated with this online format? And what we would say is that the pass-fail will make that much easier with that option. But the real warning really is not to withdraw. Do not quit now, because that could potentially then make it difficult for you and your financial aid.
Yeah, it can, especially if you're on financial aid. You don't want to just drop out of a class at this point, because trying to recover that and use that aid later to retake the course is not a wise option. We are willing to bend over backwards to help you to succeed in this. We want you to succeed. We don't want you to think that we're switching to a new format and I'm not going to do very well in this. Pass-fail is intended to give you a different option, and it's intended to do for you or to give you different kinds of options that you could use to where it make you more comfortable in the classes that you have. Some of the professors, one of the reasons that they haven't given you a whole semester worth the remainder of work yet is that they're trying to adjust to your needs as well. And so they want to do everything they can to give you this credit and to make sure. The professors have also gone through and they've looked at the grades, where things stand right now in the class. They know what your grade levels are right now. And they know that that's something of a there's a margin in there that they know that they're going to try to match to try to keep you at those levels so that you can be successful. So we beg of you, plead with you,
Yeah.
don't back out of these classes. Stay in there.
You're 2/3 through this semester.
That's right.
Don't let that work go to waste. One faculty member, I guess, is giving extra credit for online help sessions. I think that's a really terrific idea. This I think helps students get comfortable with this notion, and so I think that's a good thing. And one question about the pass-fail: who decides that?
The students will decide. What they will do is most likely they will sit down with an advisor so that there will be a sheet that will be on the COVID website very soon that will show you what your options are in pass-fail. It will explain to you any of the kind of ramifications you might run into. But I will also note that if you opt for a pass-fail, there's also an option that will allow you to go back and opt for the grade later. Because we don't want to close you in. We want to be able to give you options there of what you can do. So that will help out a great deal.
Yeah, providing sort of maximum flexibility for students and their needs. But I think that is really terrific. So another question about commencement. Commencement hasn't been canceled. It's been simply postponed. And what we haven't figured out is how that postponement will how we'll come down on that, whether that's something we defer into the summer or we do some other option. So well, thank you, Professor. You've been doing a terrific job. You guys have been working very hard, and thanks to all of our faculty members and our staff members that are really having to be quite nimble in this very fast.
Very grateful to the faculty and to the department chairs and the deans. They have really been over backwards to try to make things work. So we're all learning this together.
Well done. Well, thanks very much. Let me call Carson Howell, our Vice President for Finance and Administration, on some of the other questions that have come up related to his area. One is that some buildings are auto locking. I'm not sure what the question is there, whether that presents a particular problem for employees who might want to get back in, but I don't think so.
No, I think the question was about auto unlocking, that the buildings are being opened.
I see.
So in Richfield, there are a few buildings or a few rooms that auto unlock, but not the buildings to the outside. So we are following up on that and for the Ephraim campus to make sure that people who do need to come in, that they're safe.
So questions about food service, and do you have any insight on food service this week?
So this week there just wasn't, there weren't enough people going through, and so food service has actually been closed this week for spring break, but we'll reevaluate that on Monday when students are here, and we've talked with the international students in order to make sure that they're taken care of and they have food, and so those that are here will make sure that they're taken care of.
So what would you say to students that because we're basically telling students that, listen, the rest of the semester is going to be online, and if you can stay home, that's the very best place to stay. And we're actually saying that if you can leave, especially if you've been living in the dorms or even on your off-campus housing, we're really encouraging the students just to leave their things there for a while. Things are safe. Don't worry about them. But what would you say to students that actually have to come back to pick up an item? For example, they may not have their laptop. What would you say what do we need to tell them?
Yeah, so for those critical items that they need, then we're encouraging them to call housing to make an appointment. Now, not yet, because we haven't, nobody's coming in right now to do those pickups. But when that time comes, and if you need an item in order to continue your schoolwork, continue your education, then call housing. And that number is the 435 area code 283-7280. But for those that are looking for a sentimental item or something like that, just leave that for now in your apartment. It will be safe, but you can come back and get it at a later time.
There's probably a temptation too for families to come down and just unload, get all the, their to take everything back home after spring break. And what we're saying is that don't do that, because there's no way to coordinate that in a safe way. If we had a lot of families come down and sort of bringing their kids' stuff home, there's just going to be too many people together. So we're really sort of encouraging them to just let things stay where they are. We'll make sure that things are safe. And then if they do want to pick up an item, then they need to coordinate an appointment with housing.
Right. And I think what you also said is very important. We don't want it to be a family affair. Bring grandma and grandpa and all the, siblings and everything back. That just increases the exposure risk. So when you do make an appointment to pick up your things, that should be a small of a group as you can to come and collect your things. But do schedule that with housing in order to space that out so that we don't have everybody showing up at the same time.
And we also recognize that there's some students that have nowhere to go and that they need to stay here. How are we serving them?
So those students still have a place to stay. As I mentioned with food service, we'll make sure that they get taken care of. We are recommending that those students still isolate and practice social distancing as best they can. So even if you do stay here, don't gather in large groups and do things. We know that there's a desire to get together and to figure out a way to pass the time during this experience, but we're asking students to still maintain those safe practices. But we will have services available for those students, so they will be taken care of.
Another sort of recurring question is, should we be worried as an institution, as a college, financially? Last year, a lot of department chairs and supervisors and departments gave back to their particular budgets to kind of help the campus. What do we know now, essentially, about our financial position, and how should we sort of think about spending kind of moving forward, given the uncertainty of enrollments and all that?
I think that's exactly right. The uncertainty is what gives us a little bit of pause. As enrollments increase, the institution receives more funding in order to cover a lot of those things. So I would ask that employees and departments just be careful on their spending. Don't spend unnecessarily. There probably will be a need. If your department has extra money, that would be great if you could help out with that, because there are going to be gaps. We know that there are expenses going out now that are COVID related for emergency things. I know that some of the academic departments have needed to purchase webcams in order to conduct classes online. And so there are expenses and things that are coming in that are related to this. And so what we'd ask is that those expenses that you don't need to do right now, hold off on doing those, and just be aware of there may be a need to help contribute to the greater cause of making sure that all those expenses get covered.
Good.
But financially, we're fine. We're not in danger of closing or anything. So.
Yeah, it's a really sort of fascinating thing to sort of watch what will happen next fall. If this thing continues into the fall, how might that affect our face-to-face enrollment? One thing is clear to me is that we need to continue to kind of elevate our online game so that we have more options at our disposal. Remind us again in terms of the buildings that they're sort of we're not really accepting sort of public visitors.
Right.
So talk about a little bit about the buildings, what are locked, how they're locked.
Yeah. So the buildings will be closed for public access. They will be locked. Employees can gain access to the buildings if they need to come in to do something that's necessary to do on site. They can use their keys to get in. For those where maybe in the student center, where there are appointments or something, you need to meet with an advisor, you need to meet with financial aid, there will be notices posted on the doors of the building with phone numbers to contact to schedule an appointment if it needs to be done face-to-face. A lot of that can also be done remotely, so by telephone or something. And so those services that can be done remotely, that's what we're encouraging students and staff and faculty to do. But those notices will be posted on the door along with the phone numbers that you can call. But yes, they will be closed for public.
There's a question about refunds for housing. Remind us what we've done there.
So with the housing, there are, for on-campus housing, Snow College housing, you can receive a refund of $175 for a prorated refund, and then also receive your $100 deposit back. So basically a $275 refund if you need to move out of on-campus housing. So, and again, with the message that we've encouraged students to stay home, we'd encourage students to take advantage of that refund opportunity.
And there, as it relates to tuition, we're not providing refunds, and the reason we're not is we're continuing to offer an educational sort of experience here that will get students down towards their completing their kind of academic goals. Yeah. So one question is that from someone is that not feeling like they've been kept in the loop because things are changing so quickly, that one thing is said at night, in the morning there's something different. I would say, yeah, this is a very fast-moving situation globally, and so yeah, watching the news can be very, I think, confusing. Here at Snow College, we've really tried to keep people up to speed with our website, our frequently asked questions. This is our second kind of forum. We've been pretty consistent, I think, in our messaging, but I'd be interested in that person who felt they are being kept in the loop. Are there suggestions that you might have that would make you feel better informed? Because we're always interested in improving and making sure that we do things. We send out pretty regular emails, both to students and to our employees. So if that's not sufficient, or if there's another way to do this, let us know. So how do we get a housing refund?
So you can go to the website and talk with, under the FAQs, the coronavirus website. You can look, and it talks about housing refunds. You'll want to contact Residence Life, contact housing, and they'll be able to work that process through with you.
Okay. All right. So how can so maybe either you or Josh can answer these questions about how students can telecommute for their jobs. And
so it really depends on the job. Some jobs are able to telecommute. If the student was working under the custodial crew, that's not one that lends itself to telework. But there are some jobs like some TA work or others that may be able to be done online, tutoring, things like that. And so we'd ask you to just work with your supervisor, talk with your supervisor, see if that's an option. But for those students who can work remotely, we would encourage that.
Yep. Figure that out. Well, Dr. Howell, thank you for all your work. And again, pass on our thanks to your staff, because they are, whether it's our IT staff, our custodial, our business office, HR, all of those elements that kind of make a campus function so smoothly. You've got a great team as well. So thanks for your work, and thanks to your team.
Thank you.
Let me bring back our provost on a couple of questions related to academics, and one as it relates to concurrent enrollment. How do you think all this is going to affect concurrent enrollment?
Well, we're looking at all sorts of hybrid options for concurrent enrollment right now. So we're going to continue to broadcast, but there's also going to be a little bit more information or a little bit more accessibility in terms of there being some online features that students can do. Online students can also opt for the pass-fail option as it gets there. Again, they'll need to read what we put on the webpage because they'll need to know what all of those options are. Regular online courses, we'll have those options as well for pass-fail. All of the options are the same for all of the courses, but for concurrent enrollment, the main thing is to keep up. That's going to be really, really important. You've come this far. You're 2/3 of the way through the course, and you can do this. You will be able to do that. Just keep following the cues that your instructors are giving you, and we will help you make it through this process.
Yep. So a question here about faculty meeting face-to-face with students, especially on the one-on-ones. This particular faculty member is saying that some of the students are asking to give their final presentations in person, or they want to at least practice with them in person. What's our position there?
Well, I suppose, if it were in a big enough space, they could practice. What we want to do, though, is we want to keep the spirit of what our government leaders are asking us to do, and that is to try to keep as much distance as possible. It is awkward to give a presentation and record it online and to send that recording to a professor or to the class. It's awkward. We don't like being on camera. We don't like doing some of those things. It takes a lot of the spontaneity and the interaction with the audience out. But I suspect that that's going to be a question that they could talk to their professors about and see if they're willing to do that. But a professor may also be not so much at ease in doing that, just because not all students will have the opportunity to be able to practice in person. So she or he may be reluctant to allow some things for fear that it may not be an equal opportunity of access for all students.
We want to remind us, all students and faculty and staff, that classes are fully on beginning Monday, not Wednesday. I know initially we had thought about Wednesday, but given the fast movement of the coronavirus, we essentially had to really shut down face-to-face classes earlier. But we are starting Monday and not Wednesday, as we originally were telling people about a week or so ago.
Yeah, and there may be some bugs as we work this out too, and inevitably there will be some here and there, but we will work through these and be able to work at that. President, I know some people have been a little bit worried about how do I work this remote learning? How does that work? If you go to the college website and look under offices and click on Teaching and Technology Center, our Teaching and Technology Center director is going to put some training online so that students will know how to work this machinery as well. They're usually more adept at this than faculty are, but they can learn some tips there themselves, and even how to communicate with other students one-on-one through some of these features. So if they go to that website, they'll learn a lot of tips on what to do online.
Again, other questions. Will students have to do all the pass-fail, or can they choose per class?
They can choose it on a class-per-class basis. And a whole class doesn't have to be switched over to pass-fail. As a student, if they're doing well in 3 courses and they have another one that they are a little bit concerned about and think they might be more advantaged by a pass-fail option, they certainly can choose just for that class.
So it looks like we have that Buster's Pantry will Buster's Pantry open again? And the answer is yes, when the time is right. But I did see, didn't Michelle say something that it is open from 2 to 4?
That's their office is open.
Oh, their office. Okay.
Yeah, there is offices open there. If they will contact Student Life will make sure there's a time that they can access, and it's generally in a 4-hour block between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. and they can still have access to Buster's Pantry. If they need help now, should somebody need food now, they should probably contact me, let me know that, and then I can make sure that there's somebody there to be able to open the door so that they can get in. We don't want you to go without.
Right.
So
We understand this is a difficult time for students and everybody, and especially in a time like now where there's just a lot of uncertainty. So we continue to ask all of our students and our faculty and staff to remain very flexible with the college, remain flexible with your students, and be nimble. This is really a test of our resilience, but our ability to kind of handle a very fast-moving and unpredictable environment. So, there's still some questions that we probably are unresolved and will be until we kind of understand the nature and the trajectory, of this particular virus here in Sanpete County. Another reminder that if it looks like, you do have symptoms that are COVID-19 related, really let's not go immediately to the emergency room or to your health provider, but to call the CDC hotline so that they can walk you through a kind of a verbal kind of checklist. Because one of the things that really makes us all very worried is that if we swamp our medical system, and there are very few, here in rural Utah, we have a lot fewer resources than even in urban areas. So let's see. So the question is, do we want to have faculty on campus? How would you respond to that?
originally, when we first started out with this, we wanted people to be able to be accessible and be on campus and have students still be able to come and contact us. Again, the spirit now, though, is that we try to stay home, try to be close with our families, try not to get out and move around more than is needful. So the spirit of that is that we prefer if they could work at home. There may be some things that they may need to come in, but to think long and hard about that before coming out and doing that. And the same goes, I think, with students that are still thinking about working in study groups. If they go to that Teaching and Technology Center webpage and they can learn how to do some virtual study groups online so that they don't have to be face-to-face and they can still keep up. We want to keep the same quality of courses going as much as possible. Granted, the quality of these courses is not going to be the same as if they were face-to-face. We realize that. But it's going to be as close as we can possibly get it. You're still going to learn. You're still going to be prepared in those prerequisite courses to be able to go on to the higher level courses. You're still going to be able to complete GE. You're still going to be able to complete concurrent enrollment. That's there, and that's what we're pledged to do. So that's really where we're at.
So I think it's really important to remind us all that online learning is different from face-to-face learning.
It is.
But the focus is on learning, right? And what shouldn't be confused is that teaching and learning are not the same thing.
Right. Yeah, for some students are surprised because they get engaged in an online or remote learning class and they find out that they learn as well, and in some cases better than what they did before. Some students are geared for online. They feel a lot more confidence and a lot more at ease in that type of a setting. We highly suspect that some students are going to find out that they do better in these classes and what they think they're going to do because they're going to learn a great deal as they go through about communicating online, and it is an important skill. At some point in our lives, this will not be the only time that we're sequestered for a pandemic. We were overdue for this, and at some other point in our lives, we'll have to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. This is, I guess, another just point on online is that it may be different, but doesn't mean either better or worse. And I think that's a really important key. You've talked about how there are certain students that really respond well to online remote learning. And there are some that respond better to face-to-face learning. But that doesn't mean learning can't occur. And our faculty are working very, very hard to make sure that the learning is occurring. And just because you don't have a face-to-face sort of lecture format, that isn't necessarily the best learning pedagogy anyway. So our faculty are trying to draw on the best learning science that we know, how we implement that into our online programs. But again, this is an ongoing thing, and we have to be patient with our faculty too. That this is a very abrupt adjustment that we've asked them to do it.
Yeah. Usually a faculty member will spend an entire summer putting an online course together. In this case, remote learning and online has been done in a very short period of time. It doesn't mean that it's shabby. In fact, it's very high quality. They've been going through training. Our Teaching and Technology Center has been so busy working with faculty every single day, making sure that's there, and they've run all sorts of tests. They ran one just last night, on a test for 50 different recipients, and the quality was exceptional. So we're looking good.
A bright spot, we're continuing to look at enrollment for next fall. We're going to continue to I really appreciate our enrollment management team. Terry Clausen and her team have been very, very good at continuing to bring students to Snow College. We actually have our advisors have registered over 200 students so far, even with this sort of remote situation here. So we continue to enroll students. We hope that we're going to be all in regular business by next fall, but we'll have to just see. Just a reminder that you can access the directory on our app. So look at the Snow College app. We also will have, I think, Marcia, we have a list of buildings that are closed, so that when students, again, as they might not be a part of this particular event, as questions might come to you, audience, then make sure that you can direct them to our website or to our apps. So one of the questions is, how are we protecting employees when students come back? And again, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, frankly, that we do want as many people as possible to be able to work from home, that we'd like faculty to be at home. It's also one of the reasons why you want students to report where they've been over the spring break, so that we have a better idea of what we're dealing with. We can't, unfortunately, 100% protect people. That's not possible. But we do want us to be able to communicate with one another, where we've been, what we've been doing, and if all possible, to be able to contact people through telephone, internet first before face-to-face contact. It'll just make things a little bit easier and less stressful in some offices. Some things will have to be done face-to-face, we get that. But for the most part, trying to avoid face-to-face contact, and not just students with employees, but students and students as well. Really taking it seriously that these suggestions that we have are for your safety and for everybody else's safety as well.
The question actually came in for someone who came in a little bit late, that may want to come back and get a laptop or something from their place. Just to remind those that might be coming late, we are discouraging students from coming back and packing up. Their things are going to be fine for now, but there's just no way to do this safely if we have lots of students coming back after spring break and moving things home. Now, if they absolutely need to have something, a textbook, a laptop or something, then they need to make an appointment with housing so that they can make sure you get your item. But all kind of wholesale moving out is just something that we can't consider at the moment. I want to give a really big thanks to Chase Mitchell and his team. Chase, you've been terrific in trying to meet the needs of faculty, and all those have been a part of it. Thanks, Provost Hood, Melanie Jenkins. Thank you for your work, the deans, the department chairs, faculty. You've been terrific in really making lemonade rather, out of situations full of lemons. So one question about Big Blue Button, I guess. Where is Big Blue Button on Canvas?
It is. It's a Canvas feature. If you get on Canvas, and I'm not exactly sure which thing you click, but it is on there, and it will tell you. Also, something that's related to that, as for students, as they're trying to find some of these things and trying to determine for pass fail and so on. What faculty can be doing now as they're working with this is they can be looking over the grades that students have, and making sure that all of the grades are up to date in the grade book so that students know where they stand in terms of pass fail and so on. And then as they do that, as we get some sort of a procedure steps moving forward, then it'll be a lot more easy for students and faculty to be able to know how this pass fail system should operate. So
it's the conference button. So if you're looking at,
oh, thank you.
Yeah,
that's right. It's a conference button.
Conference button.
Yeah, and there's also some other ones on there now too. There's also a WebEx, which is a backup that's going to be put on there that will help them as well. In the event that Big Blue Button fails, we have a backup system with WebEx. So.
Well, it looks like we've a lot of our questions have kind of dwindled down to nothing. And let me just sort of reiterate, it is a great place to work, Snow College. But right now, it's a great place to work away from campus if you can. Continue to practice social distancing. That is the one thing that we're learning more and more from the experiences of Korea and Japan and these other countries that have actually had kind of flattened that curve, was really kind of staying away from a lot of people. So there's going to be an additional email going out to employees today from our human resources office, and please stay up to date on the web. That is moving pretty quickly, but thanks to everybody for your patience. Thanks to everybody for your hard work and dedication for our students' sake and for their learning. So thank you very much, Badger Nation, and we'll do this again next week. It'll either be on next Wednesday or next Thursday. We'll let you know through communication at a later date. So, Professor, thank you very much. Thanks everybody else to our IT group. Appreciate you helping us out this morning, and stay safe out there.